As a kid, I grew up in a multi-religious household, going to the church and the temple, to very different religions. I would ask my parents naturally a lot of questions out of curiosity and, asking them, why do we have to wear this thing on our forehead, when we would go to the temple. And, my mom would say, some rules are just the way they are and you just have to do what you're supposed to do. And that's kind of what I was taught. And same thing with the church. You go to church, and this was Catholic church, but similarly, I would ask my dad questions like, why are we lighting these candles? Why do we do Holy Communion? And then as I slowly grew a bit older, my questions became more deep. And that's when my parents started to kind of have an issue with the questioning. At the time, I couldn't explain the feeling to myself, but I just knew that God had to be one. I just didn't know where to look for God. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nirusha, and I'm originally from Canada, Toronto. So I've been in the UK for a year now, although Canada isn't very different from the UK, but there's a lot of culture shock. So I became a Muslim a little over 10 years ago. I was quite young when I accepted. It took me a while to actually kind of get to where I am right now, in the sense of, practicing my Islam and relearning certain things, because I discovered I learned things very incorrectly. It goes far back into my childhood. So, as a kid, my dad, who was Catholic, my mom, who was Hindu, I grew up going to the church on Sunday and also going to the temple on Fridays. Often I would be really, really confused. I would ask my parents naturally a lot of questions. Why do we have to wear this thing on our forehead? And my mom would say, oh, it's because, we are Hindu, and, there wasn't any real explanation. Maybe it's just a matter of some rules are just the way they are and you just have to do what you're supposed to do. And that's kind of what I was taught. And same thing with the church. You go to church, in some ways it was similar to the feeling of going into a Hindu temple, although it's a little bit more quiet and a little bit more peaceful. People are kind of silently sitting and praying. But similarly, I would ask my dad questions like, why are we lighting these candles? He would try to explain, like, Holy Communion's done for this and that, but it wouldn't go beyond, a certain level. And then as I slowly grew a bit older, my questions became more deep. My parents started to kind of have an issue with the questioning, and they would be like, listen, whatever doubts you have, you need to pray to God and ask God to alleviate yourself from these doubts. It got to a point where I wanted to understand truly what was God in Hinduism and what was God in Catholicism. Beyond that, I wanted to kind of like look away from all of that and go straight into the concept of God. And as a child, at the time, I couldn't explain the feeling to myself. I just literally had this innate feeling that God has to be one. And so I believed that, God should be one. So when I kind of came to that sort of realization, I understood it's neither of these religions. And then when I finally kind of learned about Islam, knowing, oh, my friend's not eating because she's fasting for Ramadan, because Islam was also, this is like post 9/11, Islam was all over the news, and Islam was obviously spoken about very poorly. I guess maybe that also was a curiosity of like, what is this like Islam that everyone's terrified of, What is Islam all about? But I kind of just understood the concept of God. That's what I was most curious about. What does Islam have to say just about God? So Islam says that God is one. He does not have any partners. He's not a father. He's not a son. He's one, and he's independent. He's self-sufficient. He doesn't need us, and he doesn't need anything. Allah is not in the form of a human being. This is the true definition of a God that you want to worship. Makes you feel that this is how God should be respected. And that's kind of where the journey began. That's when I understood. So I found out about TAWHEED by Googling it. Like, I know that's going to sound so funny, but I basically went on Google and said God in Islam. It was like just a basic Google search, really. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I learned this word TAWHEED. And then I learned that TAWHEED means the oneness of Allah, and I was like, ooh, like, yeah, that's it. Like, through that, I ended up speaking to someone about Islam, my interest in Islam, which was a friend. Happy and excited she was. She's like, oh my God, like, yeah, let me get you a Quran so you can get started, like, with reading it. There's a lot of things that impressed me about Islam because it was a personal journey, that I went through. Was the concept of justice. I felt like when there was something that I felt wasn't right, I made it a point to say it. And, like, for example, my parents would be like, listen, like, this is just the way it is. Like, life isn't fair. I understand life sometimes doesn't go the way you want it or whatnot, but we should aspire to make things fair. When something isn't fair, then something isn't right, and something needs to be at least said about it or done something about it, So once you open up the Quran and you read, Surah Baqarah, for example, and you read the many surahs where it explains in such detail how to treat your wife, the fairness of inheritance, for example, the treatment of an orphan. Islam places such importance on making sure the rights of the vulnerable are protected, and making sure those in power, those who have wealth, are held accountable. And they remember that, because you are given this blessing, don't get arrogant. Humble yourself and remember that you're still a slave of Allah. What you have is not, yours. It's Allah's, that He's gifted to you. And you have a duty upon your brother and your sister who may be in need, or even a non-Muslim who may be in need, or even just maybe vulnerable, And, a lot of the times, Islam is criticized for example, the stance it has on a lot of things in regards to women and women's rights. To the people who say that, I would recommend that they truly give Islam a chance and read the Quran. In many ways, Islam is constantly looking out for the woman, not just the wife, but the mother, the daughter, the elderly, and I thought that was very, very beautiful. I don't really think I had like a distinct purpose before Islam. I mean, I was a kid, I was young. I think just like anybody, my focus was to play. Like, I wish I had like a deeper purpose in life as a kid, but I didn't really. It was just to kind of enjoy life and to be happy. When you accept Islam and you become a Muslim, you come through many verses in the Quran talking about the dunya, and that it's not just a game, it's not just fun and play, it's a lot more than that. So I think it wasn't until I became a Muslim that I started to even think about this idea of purpose and meaning, and having sort of a mission in life, that I'm worshiping Allah to the best of my ability, which that's really the reason why we're created. And we find success through our prayer, we find peace and contentment, and that happiness a lot of the times that we chase through other things. We find it in our salah, and we find it in the sweetness of iman and our connection with Allah through dua. There's a sweetness you feel when you work with your brother and your sister for a common goal, for the sake of, for example, spreading Islam, or even something simple, just something good like feeding people. Once I accepted Islam, my worldview of like how to live life and how to be at the assistance of other people became more of like a larger part. So I think that was kind of like the purpose that I developed after accepting Islam. No. I can't think of a time where I felt like I perhaps made the wrong decision. In fact, I think when I accepted Islam is when I felt kind of like, what are you guys talking about? Like, Islam is great. You know what I mean? Almost like a protectiveness when it came to Islam. So yeah, I think when I accepted Islam, I didn't have any doubts, or I didn't feel like I made the wrong decision. In fact, I reflected and realized, actually, these people and, non-Muslims who have a negative assumption about Islam have just, been ill-informed, basically. Truly practicing it. Because I was young when I accepted Islam, I obviously, for obvious reasons, I couldn't tell my parents straight away, because they would kick me out, essentially, is what I feared, or just not be happy, and it would become a fortunate situation, and I didn't want that to happen yet, especially because I just accepted Islam, and there's still a lot more learning to do. So the practicing aspect was a challenge because I was doing it in secret. It's very difficult when you have to hide the fact that you're praying. Like, there's a lot of like this, secrecy and hiding your prayer mat, and making sure no one finds your hijab. And there's many times where I'm praying and like my mom, I can hear her come up the stairs, and she's gonna come and knock on my door, and I just freak out and I just like throw everything away and pretend like, I don't know, I'm reading a book or something. Alhamdulillah, there's this one friend that really helped me. She's the one who actually taught me how to pray. May Allah bless her. Yeah, she's a very beautiful sister. She took on that responsibility, and she was the same age as me, and she thought, you know what, I'm going to teach you how to pray. So that was a challenge. And then also, my parents, obviously. And then eventually when I did tell them, my family didn't react well. It was a shock. It was disappointment. It was anger. A lot of misconception, what this means now for me, what this means for them, and I had to really reassure them, like, other than the fact that I'm Muslim, I'm still your daughter, I still will be with you, I'll still, crack the same jokes kind of thing, and, we're still family. Not much has changed, but to them, everything has changed, kind of, is how they felt, which I understood it, and I think that was difficult. I literally wore hijab the same day, and I just started wearing hijab, signed up for classes, and I was learning Arabic at the time. So I really felt like once it was almost like a pot of boiling water, and then finally, like you took off the lid, and all the pressure was coming out. That's how it felt, because you can kind of practice in secret for a year, maybe 2, but when you're doing it for a couple of years, it really starts to take a toll on you, because it's not a nice feeling, feeling like you're living a double life, where you go outside, you wear hijab, and then you come home, and before you reach your door, you're like taking everything off. It's not a nice feeling. It really starts to take a toll on sense of self, sense of identity. It wasn't anything like very grand, or like I didn't have like an imam tell me, repeat after me, go to a masjid, or have witnesses. It was a very like natural moment with myself. I learned this is what you have to say. I basically sat down and I said, okay, practiced it, and then finally I really went within myself and like made the intention and just said it. And I think immediately I had like a very big smile on my face. I feel like as a kid I grew up faster. I would always have this sort of feeling like there has to be a God, and I want to find God. I want to build a connection with God, at least the doorstep, so that I can begin the journey to building that connection with Allah. It was a moment of happiness, and it was a moment of feeling direction after having no direction. I think my advice to someone who's considering accepting Islam is to really build a sense of sincerity in your search. Oftentimes, people convert to Islam for many different reasons. Be sincere in your search. Don't have your biases, don't have certain personal experiences make you have a pre-assumption about certain things that Islam has. A lot of people, they truly feel sincere. And another piece of advice I want to add is don't overwhelm yourself with a bunch of information. Start from the very basic, and the basic that I recommend people start with, like belief in Allah, and then everything else you can slowly but surely learn. And it's important to learn, but once you start with this and you solidify that very, very firmly, that foundation will become unbreakable. I found out about Islamic Diversity Center through a local sister that I had met. I didn't really know a lot of people, so alhamdulillah, when I met this sister, I kind of was telling her about if I can get involved with the community, and she directed me. They do a lot of great events, and they do a lot of great work with Reverts. Yeah, I've been here ever since. I'm now, kind of involved in the teams, and alhamdulillah, I'm so happy, and I'm glad that I got to find IDC, because I really feel a lot more connected and rooted in Newcastle now, and at home, alhamdulillah. They have a lot of great programs. They have classes, reminder benefits the believer, and you can never stop learning. So I think that's the biggest way IDC has helped me, is it's given me community. I think it's really important that Muslims have that sense of sisterhood and brotherhood, and get connected with each other, and to lead on each other, and to learn from each other as well. So it's an important part of our faith. That's kind of what IDC has facilitated for me personally, and alhamdulillah, I'm very happy about it, and grateful. Whatever phase in life that you're in, whether you're a non-Muslim or a Muslim, don't stop your journey in seeking and in learning and questioning. Oftentimes in life, we may find ourselves in a very comfortable position, and we just think to ourselves, I'm good. Like, life is going all right. I'm good. And just kind of live on autopilot. So I urge people, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, just ask those deep questions, like, why am I here? What am I doing? What's my purpose? That's a really good one. That's a really big one. And those type of questions can help you get some peace, get some answers, and give you that real contentment, that real happiness that is more fulfilling. And also make dua for our brothers and sisters in Palestine who desperately need our du'as and need us to be their voice. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and may Allah bless you.